Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching first part of What If Naruto Becomes Fox Knight Guardian. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
In the middle of the afternoon, the woods around Konohagakure no Sato were calm and quiet. But one place wasn't peaceful. A 15-year-old ninja who was blonde and wore an orange and black suit was stumbling along. Naruto Uzumaki fell to his knees and grabbed his stomach all of a sudden. The eight-pronged seal began to move again under his clothes. Naruto grimaced in pain as it shot through his body. Slowly, the pain went away, and Naruto was able to stand up. He turned slowly around and looked at his house. It was quite a ways away. Naruto sighed because this was the closest he would ever get to his old home until he figured out what was wrong. Since Sasuke went into his mindscape and upset the Kyuubi, it had been happening. Since then, every time he used his chakra, he felt strange. Now, a week later, the seal that kept the Kyuubi no Kitsune locked in him was causing him terrible pain. The pain got worse, and now it hurt his whole body with every beat. He tried to reach out to the Kyuubi, but all he heard was the Kyuubi crying out in pain. Whatever was going on affected both of them. He felt another wave of pain all at once. He got down on his knees and wrapped his arms around himself. But this time, the pain didn't go away. It just went on and on. In the end, it went away, leaving Naruto sweating and shaking. What? What is going on? With me? He stood up and stumbled away. He hadn't gone more than 10 steps before another wave of pain hit him. He fell and yelled out in pain. He felt his ears move, and it was almost like they were melting. The back of his pants got tighter. He yelled out again in pain, which scared the birds away. A few days later, the Godem Hokage of Konoha, Tsunade, stood in her office and looked out the window. Anbu came out from behind her. "Sorry, Lady Tsunade, but so far we haven't found anything. His trail ends in an open area." "Yes, we did find these." The Anbu showed a piece of orange fabric and some gold hair. Tsunade watched them. "The cloth is what Naruto wears." "But this isn't hair. Is that fur?" The team's leader gave a shrug. Tsunade took a moment to think. She broke her fingers together. "Get me Team Kurenai. Now." The Anbu nodded, then went away. Tsunade sighed and went back to looking out the window. "Where are you, Naruto?" A few minutes later, Kurenai Yuhi, Shino Aburame, Kiba Inuzuka with Akamaru, and Hinata Hyuga walked into the office. Tsunade noticed that the heiress of the Hyuga family seemed very sad. She pointed to the two things she had on her desk. "I need the skills of your team." In an open area to the southeast, our Anbu teams lost track of Naruto Uzumaki's trail. "I want you to all go to the clearing and see if you can find his trail. Still, be careful. It's possible that Kyuubi has been involved in something." All of Naruto's friends knew the truth about him by the time they became Chunin. Since he and Jiraiya had been away, they had time to think. In the end, it didn't change him in any way, so they didn't talk about it. Kurenai took the cloth in his hands and gave it to Kiba. He and Akamaru both smelled the fabric and nodded. Kurenai turned to Tsunade. "Hokage-sama, we'll get to work on it right away. Team Kurenai, let's move out." All 5 of them were gone. Tsunade let out a sigh and took the hair. She looked at it slowly, and her brow furrowed in surprise. "This looks almost like fox fur." "What?" Jiraiya, the Toad Sage, and her fellow Sannin were coming through the window when Tsunade turned around. He had been doing research in a nearby town. Tsunade let out a sigh and held up her golden hair. Jiraiya's eyes got much bigger. "These look like the hairs on Naruto. What has been going on with the little brat? I could not find him." Tsunade put her eyes down. He went away. No one has any idea where he is." Jiraiya just stood there for a while. He then picked up one of the hairs and looked at it. "That's fur. That is fox fur." "What exactly do you mean?" "That is fox fur. But since it's golden, it must be Naruto's hair. I think that something has happened between him and Kyuubi." Tsunade shrugged and sighed. "This is getting way too hard, way too quickly." Kiba and Akamaru led the way for Team Kurenai as they ran along the ground. The two would stop and sniff the ground or the air every so often. For Hinata's sake, Kiba was eager to try to find that dumb blonde guy. Since they found out that Naruto had gone missing, Hinata has been worried and sad. Now, there was a small glimmer of hope, and Kiba would make sure it grew. They finally got to the clearing. Right away, they all stopped in shock at what they saw. Hinata let out a gasp and put her hands over her mouth. The ground was full of furrows, and pieces of tree bark had been ripped off. Several branches were broken, and a few more pieces of Naruto's clothes were scattered around them. Akamaru sniffed a bush that had been cut down and whimpered. Kiba joined him. This bush smells like a person. But the smell of fox almost completely covers up that smell. I can't tell whose smell this is. Hinata made her Byakugan work. She squinted and looked as far as she could in all directions. Nothing was there. She took her eyes off him and hung her head in defeat. I don't know where Naruto-kun is. He's gone. She started crying, and Kurenai came over and put her arms around her. Hinata, stop it. It just means that Naruto isn't close by. We should look somewhere else. She looked over at Kiba. Can you find the scent of a person? Kiba gave a nod. I can try, but I'm not very good. Whoever did this ripped through the bush, so it smells strong. But the other smell has been covered up by other things a few times. Kurenai-sama, is this a good plan? If this is Naruto, something bad must have happened to him to make him dangerous and wild. We might need to call for more help. Shino looked at the man who used to teach him. Kiba looked at Shino. Man, what are you talking about? Naruto needs our help. Kiba, look around. These scratches and torn clothes? Naruto has changed in some way because of the Kyuubi, and he now looks like a wild animal. We can't take the chance of finding him in this state because we don't have the strength to fight him. Hinata shook her head as she tried to wipe the tears out of her eyes. Kiba-kun, Shino-kun is right. Even though I want to help Naruto-kun, we can't do anything against him in this situation. She shook with fear and wished she were stronger so she could help him. So she could tell him what she was thinking. Kurenai nodded. Shino is right, but it hurts. Let's go back to the village. Kiba hit a tree out of anger, but in the end, he nodded. 3 of them left, but Hinata stayed and looked into the woods for a moment. She shut her eyes and whispered, please be careful, Naruto-kun. Please, return home safely. Then she went away. She didn't notice the shadow that came out of the tops of the nearby trees. The person who wore a dull dark red cloak and had warm red eyes. 3 weeks later. A chunin from Konoha named Yajirobe grinned as he sat down on his bed. The demon brat was gone, and while he was looking for Naruto, he told people in Iwa that the Jinchuriki of Konoha had left. He told them about some of Konoha's spies in Iwa and gave them some other important information. It was dangerous to be an inside man, but Iwa paid a lot more than Konoha did. Soon, he'd be able to retire and leave his quiet, easygoing life. When someone knocked on his door, he took off his helmet and was about to take off his vest. He got up slowly and walked toward the door. He put his hand on the knob of the door. Who's there? Suddenly, the door flew open, and Yajirobe fell to the floor, his legs getting stuck between the door and the floor. When he looked up, he saw a dark figure there. When he saw the figure coming toward him, his eyes grew wide with fear. The apartment lights showed a dull dark red cloak with a pulled-up hood. The wearer's eyes were hidden by shadows, but the lower part of his mouth was covered by an armored face mask. The red face mask looked like a fox's muzzle when it was pulled back to show rows of gold teeth. A black nose with gold whiskers was on top of it. Yajirobe moved away from the figure by pulling back. What are you? That's not important. What matters is that you've turned your village against you. You have put the lives of other shinobi at risk. You don't deserve to live. The person's voice was deep and dark, almost like a growl. The eyes of the figure suddenly turned a very bright crimson red. The eyes had black crosses for pupils. Yajirobe couldn't help but stare at them. The figure got down on one knee next to the paralyzed man and whispered, "Tell me everything. Now." Yajirobe quickly began telling everyone everything he knew. He told them about everyone he knew and everything he did. Slowly, the figure nodded, and then it stood back up. His eyes went away, and the shadows of his hood came back. As the figure slowly pulled out a kunai, Yajirobe shook a little. What are you going to do? The only thing I'm still good at is. People like you thought I could only do one thing. He took out the knife, and Yahirobe started to talk. Wait. I have everything to give you. Money, a girl, and jutsu. Don't do this, please. I'm sorry, but you deserve it. This is how traitors like you end up. Before the traitorous Chunin could scream, the kunai flashed. After half an hour, the person left Yahirobe's house, put the door back in place, and locked it. He put the kanjin for death on the door with spray paint and then left. After 10 hours, someone finally noticed the door. On her way to work, a young woman walked by the apartment. She saw the door was open and called the landlord right away. He tried to open the door but couldn't, so he had to break it down. When the door opened, he stepped back and screamed for help. Tsunade walked up to the apartment building. 10 Anbu were keeping people away from the room while others looked into it. Shizune was close by. Tsunade went up to her student. What is it then? I sent you all down here to check it out, and you sent for me, saying I need to see this? Shizune nodded. Tsunade-sama, trust me, you need to see this. She showed Tsunade the way into the apartment. Yahirobe was lying in a pool of blood on the ground. His throat had been cut, and each of his limbs had been cut. Fear and pain had frozen his face. Tsunade shook a little when she saw the blood, but she was calm otherwise. Then she saw that there were papers on the bed. She took them in her hands and started looking through them. They were reports, as well as details about Konoha spies in Iwa and other things. The Tsuchikage told us to write the last few papers. A spy named Yahirobe was meant to give information to a group of Iwa shinobi. Tsunade turned to look at the ninja who had just died. So, he betrayed us? Shizune nodded. This morning, we found a group of dead Iwa ninja at the gate. Just killed and dragged there, that's all. Not like him, who has other wounds. This is the only other thing. Shizune looked up at the ceiling and pointed. Tsunade looked up. A picture of a fox with a sword for a tail was on the ceiling. There were 2 words below. Kitsune Naito. Who is the Fox Knight? Was he the one who did this? Shizune shrugged. We believe so. One of the dead Iwa ninja also had the symbol on them. The thieves also took their weapons and supplies. Tsunade gave a sigh. This month has been bad. First Naruto goes missing, and now this Fox Knight does too. Get Iwa a letter. Tell them that one of their teams was killed and that we have the bodies so they can get them. Shizune nodded and left. She walked past Jiraiya as he came in the door. What's going on? Besides 3 foreign ninjas and a traitor who were killed. Tsunade pointed out the signs on the ceiling. Jiraiya looked at them from above. Who is Fox Knight? Is it Naruto, do you think? Tsunade turned her head away. I don't believe that. Naruto is not the kind of guy who kills. He would have turned them in while they were still alive. Jiraiya shrugged. Who can say? If the Kyuubi did him wrong. Tsunade looked down. Well, if you think it could happen, that's fine. I was going to send you to Omegakure no Sato, but I might need you here. You'll stay in Konoha for the time being. Jiraiya nodded. Right. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to do some research. The punch Tsunade gave him was loud enough to be heard outside, especially by the person sitting on the roof of the building across the street. The person in the cloak just nodded and jumped away, avoiding the ninjas who were coming through the gates. He jumped up into the trees, turned around, and looked at the village. Some tears ran down his cheeks as his eyes turned red. This is my purpose right now. He turned around and jumped away. The Raikage of Kumogakure no Sato threw a report at his desk in a fit of anger. He looked up at his ANBU's leader. Another squad is dead? Who or what is this Fox Knight? The Anbu didn't say anything as the Raikage got up and paced in front of his desk. Every spy and contact we had in Konoha has been killed or arrested, and every ninja squad with orders against the Leaf and its allies has been wiped out. What is he? Another report was put on the desk by the Anbu. We've heard that Iwa, AIM, and Otto have had similar problems. Whoever this Fox Knight is, they are destroying our spy network and protecting Konoha and its allies. The Raikage was angry and growled at the Anbu. This can't go on any longer. Send our 4 best Junin here right away. The Anbu got up and left. The Raikage sat back down and stared at the reports on his desk. What's Konoha been up to? What is this thing in the land of fire? 4 ninjas walked into his office all at once. One of them was carrying a sword on his back and had a bandana around his head. Another man had a black patch over his left eye and scars all over his bald head. 1/3 was shorter than the others and had dull gray hair and a goatee. The last one was big and strong, with dark green hair that covered his eyes. Each wore a Kumo headband and clothes that were gray and brown with gray and white vests. The strong one took a step forward. What orders do you have, Lord Raikage? The Raikage got to his feet. We lost another group of ninjas in the land of fire. It's time to put an end to this. I'm sending the 4 of you in to find this Fox Knight and kill him for good. If you find a Hyuga, catch them and bring them back here. It's time for us to get the Byakugan and give Kumo a Kekai Genkai of its own. Do you all understand? All 4 of them gave a nod. As a group, they went away, and the Raikage smirked. I'll send my 4 best Junin to take care of this Fox Knight. Team Kakashi gave Tsunade a report, and she sat back and read it. So, you found a team of Kumo shinobi? Kakashi nodded. There were 4 of them, and they were all Chunin. They were all dead, and this was on them. He threw a piece of fabric on the desk. On it was the Fox Knight's now familiar sign. Tsunade gave a sigh. So, it was him again. Does anyone know what this group was up to? Sakura put a piece of paper with blood on it on the desk. It looks like they were told to raid the supply caches for our border patrols. The Fox Knight ambushed them somewhere past the border between fire and lightning. Only 2 of them got a chance to fight, and the other 2 were riddled with shurikens and kunais. Tsunade gave a sigh. This Fox Knight is making things worse between Iwa, Kumo, AIM, and Auto. We need to find a way to stop him or get him under control. Have you found him yet? Kakashi shook his head. Pakun couldn't find him because he covered his scent with plants and got rid of his physical trail. This person, whoever they are, knows how to hide themselves. Tsunade turned her head away. No one is impossible to find. We'll just have to wait for Team Kurenai to get back. Their border patrol mission should have ended today, so they should be on their way home. Alright. Get some rest and be ready. I may send you guys out with Kurenai's group to find this Fox Knight. You're dismissed. Kakashi, Sakura, and Sai bowed and left. Turning around, Tsunade looked out the window. Since Yahirobe's body was found in his apartment 3 months ago, this Fox Knight had been busy. 4 more Konoha shinobi who had been spies and traitors had been killed. 7 more ninjas had come to the Ambu headquarters, where they admitted to spying and talked a lot about the Fox Knight. Not only that, but all of these traitors' connections with foreign powers would also end with them dead at the gate. Several reports said that the bodies of foreign ninjas who had been sent against Konoha or one of their allies had been found. Most of the time, weapons and other items were also taken from the bodies. Konoha always sent the bodies back to where they came from. But they were getting a lot of angry news and accusations. There could be a 4th shinobi war if things don't calm down soon. Tsunade shook her head and looked up at the sky. Clouds drifted slowly by in the sky. Naruto, wherever you are, I could use your laugh right now. Tsunade bowed her head and silently prayed for the blonde ninja. Team Kurenai stopped for the night after a few days. They had finished their mission, but a group of Iwa ninjas kept them from leaving because they were making fun of them from inside Konoha. Team Kurenai had to waste time chasing the ninjas back to their own land because they had run away. Now, they were behind by 3 days. Kurenai, Shino, and Kiba all went to bed, but Hinata decided to stay up and keep an eye out for enemy ninjas. While everyone else slept in the big tent, she sat by the fire. Since Naruto went missing, she had shown everyone that she was strong. She worked hard in the gym, determined to get stronger. But when she was alone at night or other times, she let her true self show. She would cry and pray in her head that Naruto would be safe. She was doing that right now. Hinata cried quietly so she wouldn't wake up the other people. She had tears running down her cheeks as she looked up at the night sky. Please, whoever is watching over us from up there. Please, keep Naruto-kun safe. Keep him alive and well, please. And wherever he is, let him be happy. She began to cry and put her head down. She was fragile. Neji had been right. Her dad was correct. She was weak and had no value. If I had been stronger and had the guts to tell Naruto-kun how I felt, he might still be at home. This headband isn't fair to me. I keep seeing it in fanfics, but I can't remember what it's called. Could you please tell me? Hinata didn't know that there were 7 eyes on her as she sat by the fire. The 4 Kumo Junin sat in trees nearby and looked at the sad Hyuga heiress. The person with the patch on his eye looked at the person with green hair. So, when are we going to move, Hidoi? Not yet, Soken. We need to make sure she hasn't seen us yet. The one with the sword leaned back against the tree. Alright, I'm going to bed. Wake me up when you're all ready. Hidoi ran over and shook the person with the sword. No, you don't, Suiman. Stay awake, or I'll take that blade and let Kashaku have his fun. The little one laughed at the idea. That would be nice. It's been a while since I've lived up to my name. Hidoi walked toward him. You'll get your chance. Here's the plan. Me and Soken will catch her and get the others to come out. You and the other 2 will deal with them, and then we'll have fun. The 4 Kumo Junin laughed and waited a little while longer. But they didn't know that a person was nearby, leaning against a tree. His cloak moved in the light breeze, and inside the shadow of his cloak hood, a pair of blood-red eyes lit up. Hinata had just finished crying and was about to put another log on the fire when she heard a twig break. She turned on her Byakugan right away, but just in time to see the 2 ninjas coming up behind her. The strong one hit her in the back of the head with an arm, knocking her out. Soken grabbed her, but the tent had already started to move. When Kiba and Akamaru ran out of the door, they saw what was going on and ran toward it. Hidoi turned to him right away and finished his hand signs. Both the boy and the dog got shocked when electricity shot out of his fingertips. Their nervous systems were overworked, and when they fell, they were temporarily unable to move. The next ones out were Kurenai and Shino. Kurenai was holding a kunai, and Shino was calling up his bugs. Hinata's throat was held open with a kunai knife by Soken. Stop. The girl is going to die. Both Kurenai and Shino hesitated for a single, crucial second. Both Suiman's sword handle and Kashaku's fist hit them in the head, knocking them out. Hinata woke up slowly, and her head hurt. She tried to lift an arm to feel it, but her arms wouldn't move. Slowly, she realized that she was tied to a tree and that her mouth was covered with a gag. She turned a little and winced because her head hurt. Nearby, some of her teammates were also tied up. Kiba and Kurenai were having trouble, but Shino wasn't there yet. Well, the Hyuga brat is finally awake, Hidoi said as he walked over to the girl who was tied. You weren't our main goal, but the Raikage will be happy we brought you in anyway. Kashaku looked at the people who were tied up. What about them? Don't we not need them? Hidoi gave a nod. No, not at all. Why don't you have some of your fun? It might be good for the girl to see. Kashaku stood up, laughed, and reached into a bag as he did so. He walked up to Kurenai and was about to pull out whatever he was going to use when he heard some whistling sounds, then a series of thumps, and then Kashaku said, GRK. He hit the ground with a kunai in his head, 1 in his neck, and 2 more in his spine. Almost right away, the other 3 Kumo Junin jumped up and stood back to make a triangle. Suiman pulled out his sword, while the other 2 took out their kunai. They looked around at the trees and watched. Hinata did the same thing. Her Byakugan could barely make out any movement in the woods. Soken also saw the movement and threw his kunai knife in front of where it was. It moved, but all it did was make a puff of smoke. Then, out of the ground in front of him, a figure appeared. The figure wore a red cloak and had red eyes that lit up and had black crosses on them. His lower face was covered by an armored mask that looked like the muzzle of a growling fox. The figure growled, "You guys never look down," and then punched Soken in the face. But when he did, a pulse of chakra and a squishing sound happened. Hinata let out a shocked gasp when she saw what had happened. Hidoi and Suiman turned around and saw that 3 blades were coming out of the back of Suken's head. The figure pulled his hand back, and the blades came out with a wet squish. The dead body of Soken fell to the ground. Hidoi and Suiman looked at the person they were supposed to kill. The Fox Knight was wearing 2 armored gloves. On the right one, 3 blades that looked like claws and were each a foot long stuck out from the back of the hand. The blades moved back when the Fox Knight put his chakra into them. When he opened his cloak, he saw a katana in its sheath at his side. He took it in his right hand and took the blade out of its sheath. It was 3.5 feet long. The moonlight made the blade shine all the way to the crossguard, which looked like an open fox's mouth from which the blade came out. Both the scabbard and the hilt were red, and each side of the hilt had a black diamond pattern. The man in the cloak used his blade to point at Suimin. "You, me. Here, right now." Suimin charged forward and attacked with a head slash that was so fast it was hard to see. The figure dodged and punched with his left hand. It hit Suimin in the stomach, and he took a step back. After he got up, he tried to stab. The Fox Knight pushed the blade to the left and then hit Suimin in the face with his right elbow. The Kumo sword ninja moved back, so the Fox Knight turned to his right. His blade hit Suimin's and knocked it away. Then, with his left fist, he hit Suimin's already hurt face. He pulled back on his sword, and it went into Suimin's body. The Fox Knight took a step back from his third dead opponent and grunted when Hidoi's kunai hit his left arm. The Fox Knight grabbed Hidoi with his right arm and threw him away. Fox pulled the knife off Hidoi's arm as he landed and crushed it with one fist. He moved slowly toward Hidoi, who had gotten back on his feet. Hidoi used the same lightning jutsu that he had used on Kiba, but the Fox Knight's blade ate it up. He was thrown against a tree and forced to look into those blood-red eyes. "Tell me your secrets right now." The Fox Knight beamed his eyes into Hidoi's mind and read everything from the fact that he had wet the bed until he was 12 to the fact that his secret goal was to kill the Raikage and take his place. "So, you betrayed your Raikage? You wanted to kill the girl so you wouldn't have to take care of her on the way home? Then it's time for you to be judged." The Fox Knight pulled his left fist back, took the blade out of his gauntlet, and stabbed forward. He stopped looking at the dead Junin and looked at the 5 figures that were tied together. He cleaned his sword on Kashaku's body and put it away. Then, he used a kunai knife to cut Kiba's and Kurenai's bonds. Kiba went to Akamaru, while Kurenai freed Shino. The Fox Knight looked at Hinata, and his eyes turned a warmer shade of red as they lit up. Hinata thought she should be afraid, but she was drawn to those eyes instead. Something about them made me think I knew them. He cut the gag off, and then he cut the ropes. He caught her as she was falling. Her eyes filled with tears as the blood began to move through her body. The Fox Knight put her on the ground and started rubbing her wrists. She gave him a grateful look. Thank you," she said in a whisper. He moved to her ankles and said, "No problem. I'm glad I was nearby." He also rubbed them before he helped her get up. The others went up to him slowly and carefully. He moved his head back and forth. "Don't worry about me unless you betray Konoha or your friends." He looked him over from head to toe. "I'm grateful for what you did for us here, but I'm afraid your actions are going to cause trouble for our village. Several of the villages whose ninjas you killed are upset, and they might attack us." The Fox Knight was looking up. After a while, he let out a frustrated sigh. "Even now, what I do hurts the village. It seems I can only hurt the people I'm supposed to protect." He pulled a letter out of his cloak that was still sealed and gave it to Kurenai. "Give this to your Hokage. It's for her eyes only. Do you understand?" As Kurenai took the letter, the Fox Knight turned and went into the trees. They could hear his voice coming from all around them. "I'll keep an eye on you as you make your way home. Be careful." Hinata looked out into the woods, where the man who had helped them had gone. "What do you do? What gives me the feeling that I know you?" Team Kurenai reported back after 2 days. Kurenai gave the letter to Tsunade as she finished her report, as the Fox Knight had asked. "So, you were attacked by Kumo ninjas who were sent to get a Byakugan user, and the Fox Knight saved you and gave you this to give to me?" Tsunade opened the letter when Kurenai nodded. Her eyes started to look at it. "To Konoha's Godam Hokage. From Fox Knight. Tsunade-sama. It's come to my attention that, even though I haven't hurt Konoha or its allies, you aren't happy with everything I've done. I'm sorry for any problems I've caused you. If you want, we can meet and talk in person. 2 days from now, I'll be waiting in a clearing 2 miles north of town. There's no trick here. I really want to talk to you and figure out how we can solve our problems. I will wait for you, but I will only talk to you. I hope to see you soon. Fox Knight is the shadow that protects Konoha." Before putting the letter down, Tsunade read it again. She looked up at Team Kurenai and gave them a nod. "Thank you for bringing this in. Get checked out at the hospital and get some rest. We'll go see this Fox Knight in 2 days. Team Kurenai bowed and left. Tsunade took out one of her hidden bottles of sake and slowly drank it while looking out the window. Okay, Fox Knight. We'll meet. But I just hope that Jiraiya and I are wrong about what we think about you. 4 Anbu walked slowly beside Tsunade as she made her way through the woods. But she knew there were others close by. She had made sure of that herself. Flashback. Tsunade stood in front of the 4 groups of shinobi. Jiraiya was to the right of her. Kakashi, Guy, Kurenai, and Asuma each had a team behind them and stood ready. Asuma and Jiraiya are both still alive. Because Naruto was gone and the Fox Knight showed up, neither of them went on the missions that killed them. I got a letter from the mysterious Fox Knight. He wants to talk to me. This is our only chance to catch him and either stop him or bring him under control. You will all surround the perimeter and make sure he doesn't get away, right? All of the ninjas there nodded their heads at the same time. Tsunade gave a sigh. I don't want anything bad to happen to him unless there's no other way. Sakura, you know what you need to do. Sakura nodded and gently patted the pouch that held her weapons. I understand. Tsunade gave a sigh. This man is very dangerous. If he decides to fight, you should stop him with all your strength. Flashback is over. Slowly, Tsunade moved toward the clearing. At the edge of the clearing, the Anbu stopped. Slowly, Tsunade walked in and looked around. The time, date, and place were all right. No one was there, though. Hello, I'm Tsunade Senju, the Godem Hokage of Konoha. Is the Fox Knight here? A deep, growling voice came from the woods and said, I know who you are. The Fox Knight's cloaked figure seemed to grow out of the ground all of a sudden. Tsunade took a step back, surprised that he had been able to get so close without being seen. The person in the cloak bowed. As he raised his head, Tsunade tried to see his face. But his eyes were hidden by the shadow of his hood, and the face mask went from his chin to his nose. She gave a head shake. Why are you wearing that hood and mask? It must be very hot outside. Why don't you take it off? I'd rather not tell you who I am. I hope you understand. Tsunade sighed and gave a small nod. Very well. So, let's talk. Yes, the Fox Knight said, making a few hand gestures. The Anbu came out of the woods, and when they looked down, they saw 2 chairs made of earth. The Knight of the Fox looked at them. I see you brought this up again. Do you think I'm a threat? Tsunade gave a sigh. Because of my job, I had to do it. Please don't mind them. He gave a small nod. What about the other ninjas nearby? Are they trying to hurt me? The eyes of Tsunade got bigger. What? I've spent almost 4 months in these woods training my senses and skills. There are 4 ninja to the north, 3 to the west, 4 to the east, and another 4 to the south. Then, your 4 Anbu and a dozen other ninja are waiting in the far south as reinforcements. And that's just what I'm sensing while looking for chakra. Tsunade gave a sigh. Very well. They both sat down, and Tsunade went right to work. We need to talk about your actions. They've been good for Konoha, but they've caused a lot of trouble for the people whose ninja you've killed. If you keep doing what you're doing, you could start the 4th Shinobi War, which would be very bad for Konoha. He sighed and looked at the ground. No matter what I do, I failed those I have sworn to protect. I am a failure, no matter what. As Tsunade looked at him with a puzzled expression, he looked up at the sky and said something sad. All I wanted to do was help and have a purpose, but everything I do hurts the people I'm trying to protect. He got to his feet slowly and sighed. I'll turn myself in. Just promise me one thing. I want to walk back into my hometown and see it with my own eyes. As the other ninjas came up to him, Tsunade looked him over. The Fox Knight walked up to Sakura. Tsunade sighed and gently nodded. I'll take your surrender, but I can't let you wake up. This is to make sure you don't get away. Sakura stuck a syringe into the Fox Knight's arm out of the blue. He took a quick look at it and then at Sakura. She let out a gasp and moved away. When the Fox Knight looked at Tsunade, she could see his eyes. She thought they would be red, but they weren't. They were instead a bright blue. He spoke slowly, and his voice was one she hadn't heard in 4 months. He whispered, with tears in his eyes, Ba-chan, I should have known better. Then his eyes shut and he fell slowly to the ground. His hood fell back as he did this. Tsunade ran over to him and gasped when she saw his long, spiky blonde hair and 2 golden fox ears. She slowly took off the mask while shaking. When she did, she saw Naruto Uzumaki's whisker marks and his face. She said, "Naruto." In a whisper. She looked up at the Anbu and said, "It was always you. Take him home, but cover his head. I want him in the Hokage Tower's security room. Move." They said, yes, and one of them put the hood and face mask back on. Someone else tied him up, and all 4 of them took him. Tsunade looked at the other people, who were all shocked in different ways. Kakashi's eye followed the Anbu carrying Naruto, and Sakura's face was pale. With Team Kurenai, there was a girl with opal eyes who just stood there. Then she passed out, and Kiba just barely caught her. Tsunade walked up to the room in the Hokage's tower where political prisoners of high rank were kept. On the ground, there was a seal that blocked chakra, and the chains were strong enough to hold even Tsunade. She gave a nod to the 4 Anbu standing in front of the steel door, and one of them opened it for her. She walked into the room slowly, and the door shut behind her. Naruto's cloak, face mask, claw gauntlets, sword, and the 20 kunai, 45 shurikens, and 10 explosive notes he was carrying were all taken away. Tsunade could see that Naruto had changed without his cloak and mask. His ears had turned into 2 ears with golden fur. A gold-furred tail came out of his rear end. Naruto was now wearing a red swirl on a gray t-shirt. He was wearing black boots and pants. His pants had been changed so that he could put them on over his tail and let it hang freely. I don't know how to explain it, so bear with me. He looked up slowly and his ears twitched. She flinched when his eyes met hers. Once, there was laughter and determination in those blue eyes. Now they were cool and didn't give anything away. Well. What do I have to do with the Hokage coming to see me? Tsunade gave a sigh. I'm here to try to find out what happened to you, why you went missing, and why you didn't come back. Why are you giving me special treatment? Shouldn't Ibiki-san or Anko-sama be doing this? She asked. Naruto smiled at her in an icy way. Please, Naruto, don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. Naruto's smile disappeared. Hard? Yeah, well, what do you know about hard? Tsunade looked at him, and as she did, her anger grew. I know a lot about how hard life can be. Yeah, right. You lost your little brother and your love. Then you ran away, got drunk, and lost a lot of money doing what you love. It's hard to do what you want without any responsibilities. Naruto looked at her with eyes that no one had ever seen so cold. Look at me. Look at what has happened to me. I've spent 12 years of my life being yelled at, beaten almost to death, being ignored, and having no one. I had to teach myself everything that kids learn from their parents. Then, after I get out of the academy and learn about my roommate, I spent a few months, happy to have people who I thought cared about me. It turns out that the man I treated like a brother betrayed me and tried to kill me. The girl who I devoted my life to treated me like dirt and beat me on a regular basis. My sensei tossed me aside to teach that Teme everything. My so-called friends laughed at me, insulted me, and beat me down on a regular basis. The village I have defended with my life, and that I have saved more times than I can remember, they treat me like I am nothing. And that stupid pervert. In all the time we were training, I thought I was becoming stronger. But when I come back, I find out I'm weaker than Ino. All he did was give some stupid training routine, and then go off and peek at girls. He put his head down, and tears began to come out of his eyes. Even though they knew about Kyubi, Tucci and Ayame, who own the ramen stand, treated me like family and never turned me away. And Hinata. Hinata Hyuga has always been there for me. She's never stopped being there for me. He turned his head and looked directly at Tsunade. Both pain and anger were written all over his face. I'm going to lose them now. I'm going to have nothing again, because I'm a monster, because I'm a Hanyu, and nobody wants a demon around. Tsunade whispered, Naruto. What did I do? What did I do to deserve all this? What did I do? He yelled at the ceiling before putting his head back down. When he picked it up, his eyes went back to being cold. Just sign your orders and send me to jail or have me killed. I don't care anymore. He looked at Tsunade for a few minutes. Gone was that eager boy who told her he would be Hokage and made her laugh even when he insulted her and she hit him. The man in front of her thought his life had no purpose and that no one wanted him. She turned her back on him and left the room. As Tsunade slowly walked up to her office, the Anbu locked the door. She sat in her chair as she slowly came to understand what was going on. Naruto had a point. Even she didn't care about him, even though he was the one who had brought her back. She only gave him boring tasks and yelled at him when he failed most of them. She had always thought of him as a little brother, but had she ever told him that? As soon as she realized how sad the truth was, she started to cry. He was the best hero this village could have asked for. And for that, he was treated worse than any criminal could ever be. Shizune knocked on the door, and as soon as Tsunade opened her eyes, she wiped them. Yes? Is everything okay, Tsunade-sama? Tsunade looked away from Shizune and said, why yes. Everything is fine. When Tsunade turned around, she had a sudden fire of purpose in her eyes. Shizune, you need to do something for me. Yes? I want you to go find out everything you can about the Namikaze family in Kushina Uzumaki. Then, I want you to take a group of shinobi and clean up Minato and Kushina's old home. Make sure everything is ready. I think it's time this village found out who they've been mistreating all these years. Shizune nodded and left. Tsunade looked at her papers and went after them with all her strength. The doorbell rang again all of a sudden. She snapped, who is it? Because she didn't really want to talk to anyone else. Hinata Hyuga was there when the door slowly opened. Oh, Hinata. I'm sorry about that. It's fine, Hokage-sama, she said as she walked into the room and shut the door behind her. Then she went over to Tsunade's desk. Hokage-sama, I was wondering what you were going to do to Naruto-kun. Tsunade took a moment to look at her. I honestly don't know. I want to just let him go and get things back to how they were. But the elders will probably want his head, and Danzo will want him as a weapon. And the way he is right now, he would probably join Danzo and Anbu. Hinata gave her a surprised look. Is there something wrong with him? Tsunade gave a sigh. He's changed so much that it's like he's a whole new person. He doesn't care if he lives or dies, and I don't know what to do. The blonde Sanin looked at the heiress of the Hyuga family. Maybe you should talk to him. I think he could use your company right now, and I think you would understand him better than anyone else in the village and know just what to say. Hinata turned red, but she nodded. Hinata got a form from Tsunade that said she could see Naruto. Hinata went quickly to the security room and showed the Anbu her form. At first, they were hesitant, but they did what they were told and opened the door. Naruto looked up, thinking he would see an interrogator, an elder, or Danzo. But his eyes got bigger when he saw Hinata. As soon as she walked in, Naruto lowered his head. What are you doing here, Hinata? Hinata stayed back, afraid to get close. She started to feel nervous again about being near Naruto. Naruto saw her hanging back and thought she was being rude. It's okay. I know I'm a monster. You don't need to get close to me, he said, trying hard not to cry. Hinata let out a gasp when she figured out what Naruto must have been thinking. Seeing him like this made her feel awful. She took small steps forward, but she didn't stop. She got down on her knees next to Naruto and slowly raised his head as she touched his chin and turned red. Hinata gently pulled Naruto's head up, and he looked up at her in shock. She was red as a beet, but she was still determined to talk. NN Naruto-kun, I couldn't be human if I thought the man who saved me was a monster. Hinata, look at me. How can you say I'm not a monster? I'm not human. I'm a Hanyu now. He flicked his tail to show her. She looked at it from the bottom up, then at his ears, and finally back at his eyes. Maybe that's how you look, but what are you really like on the inside? Do you want to kill me? Hinata went on while Naruto shook his head. Did you enjoy killing those men, all those traitors and enemies, or did you do it because you thought it was necessary? She went on while Naruto just looked at her. What about that man? That Junin who was going to torture Kurenai-sensei. He looked like a man, but he acted like a monster. You may look like one thing, but you are still who you are on the inside. He looked at the ground. Hi, Hinata. Why are you so nice to me? Why do you care so much? Hinata's face turned even redder, and she blushed even more. She fought the urge to poke her fingers together and not answer, but she kept going. Because you are my inspiration. Whenever I felt like I couldn't do anything, you were always there to help me. Whenever I felt like giving up, I thought about how you never gave up. I wanted to get strong so I could thank you. But when you left, I felt that if I wasn't so weak, I could have helped you. But I can't help anyone, because I'm weak. The top of Naruto's head shot up. Who says you're weak? Look at you. You're stronger than anyone I know. Hinata just stared at him in shock as he talked. Even though Neji tried to kill you, you forgave him and treated him with more respect than he deserved. Even though others would stay away from me, you had the courage to treat me with kindness and friendship. Even now, when others think I'm a demon, you're still here, still offering friendship to me. You have the strength to forgive others, no matter what they do. You have the courage to do what you think is right. That makes you stronger than anyone, especially me. Hinata slowly started to cry as she saw Naruto's eyes start to show glimpses of the old Naruto. Naruto-kun, do you think you're a monster now? A monster wouldn't say things like that, would they? Naruto looked at this young woman, who had never been mean to him or turned her back on him. She had been his friend, given him hope, and given him ideas. She gave him everything he could ever need. She was there now, trying to show him that he was still a person. Why does she want to help me so much? Then it made sense. It took him about 8 years to figure it out. Hinata-chan? Do you like me? Hinata looked up all of a sudden. Her face was the reddest it had ever been. It took everything she had not to pass out. She could only look because she was afraid she would pass out. But Naruto could see the truth in her eyes. It was a lot more than. Hinata-chan. Do you love me? Hinata, who was barely able to stay awake, slowly nodded before falling over. As she fell, Naruto's tail flicked out and patted her head. All he did was look at her. She loves me? But I don't know what it means to love. But as he looked at her, he started to pay attention to her. He had seen her before. She was pretty, but she was very quiet and shy all the time. He had never really thought about her in any way other than as a friend. But now he could see that she was as beautiful as Sakura, if not more so. And she was so sweet and kind. Naruto felt like something was inside of him. It was a feeling, just like how he felt about Sakura. This was more, though. It was 100 times as much. Is it love? I'm not sure. He just looked at Hinata as his tail slowly moved out from behind her head and stroked her head. She gave him a soft smile and hugged his tail, leaning against it. He smiled, which was the first time he had smiled in a long time. The door was pushed open all of a sudden, and Hiashi stood there with his eyes burning with anger. When she heard the noise, Hinata woke up and looked at the door. Her eyes got big and scared. Hiashi walked toward her and then hit her out of the blue. He was in front of Naruto. He said, You demon scum, stay away from her, and then he punched Naruto in the stomach. Naruto fell to the ground and coughed up blood. Hinata was scared as her father turned to her. You are a disgrace to the Hyuga family. I'm going to take you back to the estate and have the caged bird seal put on you. He tried to grab her, but his hand was stopped. He was completely stuck. Back there, he could feel a huge surge of chakra as the seal broke apart under him. The suffocating chakra made the 4 Anbu outside the door cower. Hiashi was suddenly pulled around and brought in front of the freed prisoner. He looked into blood-red eyes all of a sudden. Black crosses that had turned into 2 X's were the pupils. You dare hurt someone so innocent, pure, and kind. Your soul is tainted by a desire for power, and you don't care about what's really important. Now, tell me all your secrets. Hiashi felt like his mind was being poked at and read like a book. All of his secrets and plans were out in the open for this man to see. He was finally let go, and he fell to the floor. Naruto's eyes again looked like they were crossed. Your secrets are out. You never planned to make Hinata heiress. Once you had a reason to, you would have put her in the branch family. Hinata, he doesn't love or respect you. He has kept you down because he is afraid of what you can do to the clan if you become heir. Hinata looked at her father on the floor, who was shaking. She slowly got to her feet and walked over to Naruto, whose eyes were back to normal. She was shocked to see that the chakra Naruto had used to break the seal on the ground had also broken the chains. When the 4 Anbu outside the door got over feeling the surge of chakra, they rushed in. They took out their weapons and were ready to fight. Hinata moved in front of Naruto to stop them. "Lady Hinata, please move out of the way. We need to stop him." Hinata put her head down. "He was looking out for me, and I won't let you hurt him." The Anbu tightened their grips on their weapons as Naruto moved slowly past her. "Don't, Hinata-chan. I don't want you to get in trouble because of me." Tsunade came in quickly and pushed through the guards. "What happened here?" she yelled when she saw Naruto freed from his chains and Hiashi slowly getting up from the floor. That scum. He attacked me. I came here to get my daughter back, but he used that demonic chakra to break free and attack me. He brainwashed my daughter. Liar. You came here to take your daughter away and put her in the branch family of the Hyuga clan. You came in, hit her, and then punched me while I was still chained up. When you threatened Hinata-chan, I broke free and learned the secrets of your mind. You don't want her to be the head of your clan because you know she will bring the main and branch families together and get rid of the bird seal. Tsunade looked back and forth between the two. Then she saw the red spot on Hinata's cheek that was getting bigger. She gave a slow nod and then looked at Naruto. How do you know all of that? It's my eyes. When Kyuubi and I merged against our will, he didn't just heighten my senses. He gave me a special gift. I can read a person's mind, no matter how well guarded it is. That's how I found traitors and learned enemy secrets. Tsunade looked at him in surprise. She looked at the broken seal, the chains that had melted, and the way Naruto stood guarding Hinata, and she came to a conclusion. Come to my office. We need to talk. 6 Anbu Black Ops stood against Tsunade's office wall in case Naruto did something. But it seemed like the only thing he wanted to do was keep Hiashi away from Hinata. He put himself in the middle of them, which made Hiashi move his chair away from him. Tsunade sat at her desk and looked them over. She put her elbows on the desk and put her head on her hands, which were intertwined. Before we talk about what happened down there, I think we need to know what happened to you, Naruto. Please tell us what happened. Why did you disappear? Naruto sighed, before beginning. Well, I guess I should start with the mission we did to meet Sasori's spy, don't you remember? Tsunade nodded. After Sakura and Chiyo, the elder of Suna, beat the Akatsuki puppet master, he told them he was going to meet a spy he had in Orochimaru's network. They met a spy and found out it was Kabuto. Then, they were caught in an ambush meant for Sasori. In the end, they found Orochimaru's hideout and Danzu's attempt to join forces with him. Since they didn't have any solid proof, they couldn't put him in jail for treason. Naruto continued. Well, Kyuubi wanted to come out and fight Sasuke, but I wouldn't let him. While I was distracted, Sasuke used his Sharingan to get into my mind and somehow got rid of the Kyuubi. Whatever he did, it set off something. He put his hand down to feel his seal under his shirt. It set off Kyuubi's chakra in such a way that it automatically started to merge our DNA. I didn't know about it until a week later, when both my chakra and Kyuubi's started acting up. I felt these chakra pulses, and it felt like my insides were melting. I decided to leave the village in case something bad happened. He looked down, and his thoughts were filled with memories. It wasn't a good thing. Flashback. As the pain kept coming over him, Naruto grabbed his stomach. As he rolled around on the ground, he tore at his clothes in the ground to get rid of the pain that washed over him. His headband fell off after being pushed off by 2 golden fox ears. The hole in the seat of his pants let out a bushy, golden fox tail. The pain stopped just as quickly. Naruto laid on the ground and breathed hard. When he finally looked up, he saw his headband. He reached for it, and just as he was about to grab it, he saw himself in it. When he saw the fox ears on his head, he stopped. He gently touched them, and then he reached behind him and felt his body grow in a strange way. He opened his eyes wider and turned the fox's tail around to look at it. No, 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 no. What's going on? He began to scream in rage out of fear and anger. He went crazy in the clearing and broke down trees and bushes. He finally gave up because he was too tired. Kyuubi, what did you do to me? Nothing, you stupid human. I didn't do anything. That stupid Uchiha did it. Naruto shook, and tears came to his eyes as he thought about one thing. I'm a monster. I can't go home. I can't go home like this. No one would want me. Naruto fell down, got up, and ran. Flashback is over. After that, I ran away. I thought no one would want me around anymore, so I just ran. I ended up near a small village on the border. I went up to a hut on the edge of the village and fell asleep there. The old man who lived there found me. He looked into the distance. Hinata gave his arm a gentle squeeze, which made Hiashi very angry. Naruto gave her a smile and then went on. I thought he was going to kill me, but instead he took me into the hut and cared for me. When I asked him why, he told me that he knew the difference between a demon and a Jinchuriki, and that since I wasn't an evil Jinchuriki who wanted to hurt others, he would help me. Tsunade nodded. Whose was he? I'm not sure. He just called himself Kage Yeba, an ex-ninja from the extinct Uzugakure no Sado. He taught me a few things about kenjutsu, tracking, and a few other types of weapon-styled fighting. He gave me my cloak, and the weapons I call my foxclaw gauntlets, then helped me forge my katana. Once that was done, he helped me create my own style of kenjutsu, known as katana no kitsune bibu. The blade of the foxtail. Naruto gave a small smile. The Kyuubi complained and threatened me for a while, during my training. Eventually, when he realized that he was never getting out, and never going to be able to take me over, he decided to at least make sure he lived for a while, by making sure I was as strong as possible. So, he told me exactly what I can do now that I was a Hanyu. After that, he became silent. I haven't heard from him since, but I know he is still there. Naruto slowly got to his feet. The merger made me stronger and faster. My senses have been increased to the level of a fox. I also gained Kyuubi's knowledge, which mostly covered all the jutsus of the people he has faced against. Lastly, I gained his own unique ability, the Kitsunegan, or fox eyes. They allow me to read a person's mind, and as I recently discovered, I can even begin to destroy a person's mind. He noticed the sudden glint in Tsunade's eyes. Naruto opened his eyes and looked at one of the Anbu. It's not a Kekai Genkai or something that can be taught. It's only available to me because I have Kyuubi in me. Even my children won't get this ability. When no one is around, that man writes poetry in secret. The Anbu started while the others shook and tried to keep from laughing. Tsunade did laugh, but then she sighed because she couldn't copy this ability and sat back. Well, that's a shame. Just keep going. Naruto nodded. When I was training, Kage and I came across some Iwa ninjas meeting with the Chunin Yajirobe. We overheard their conversation, and I realized that Yajirobe was a spy. Kage and I then went after the Iwa ninjas and killed them, so they couldn't tell anyone what they had heard. I then took care of Yajirobe, as you know. Naruto sat back down when Tsunade gave him a nod. That's when I came up with a new goal for myself. I knew I could never be Hokage or even a ninja in Konoha, so I decided to serve the village by protecting it from the outside and dealing with traitors and enemy spies I found on the inside. Tsunade nodded. Well, then it looks like you've done the village a lot of good. But he is a rogue ninja. He should have been killed as soon as he was captured. And he attacked me in the security room. Hiashi screamed as he stood up. Tsunade looked at him with a face full of cold anger. If I were you, Hiashi, I wouldn't tell me what you do for a living. Naruto's actions make it seem like his story of what happened down there is more likely than yours, especially since he has an eyewitness on his side and you only have your own word. If Naruto is right about your intentions, then your word doesn't mean much. Don't insult me. I'm the leader of the most powerful ninja clan in Konoha, Hiashi Hyuga. This made Naruto laugh. Maybe once, but Kyuubi remembers fighting Hyugas back in the day, and even the weakest of them would make you look bad. Hiashi glared at Naruto and swung at him. Naruto turned his head and grabbed Hiashi by the wrist. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I could break the bones in your wrist until they were nothing but dust. He put a little pressure on Hiashi's wrist, and the pain was so bad that he fell to his knees. Naruto, I wouldn't mind if he were a little less cocky, but that would only make your situation worse, Tsunade said. Naruto didn't want to do what was asked of him, but a gentle hand on his shoulder stopped him. Hinata gave his hand a gentle squeeze and said, "He's not worth it, Naruto-kun." When Naruto turned around, he saw Hinata blushing but still staring at him. He took Heishi's hand off his wrist and sat back down, but Hinata kept her hand on his. Tsunade gave a sigh. Right now, Naruto, you are an S-ranked missing nin. However, there are some mitigating factors. One is that you have been helping Konoha. Here are the others. She showed a big folder and a much smaller one. These are the reports on the Namikaze family, who were some of our strongest ninjas in their time, but not enough of them to be a clan. You probably know about Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto nodded. He knew everything about it. He had been his role model. When he found out that the Yondaime had sealed Kyuubi inside of him, he was very angry. But as he thought about it more, he realized that the Yondaime didn't have a choice and had to accept that. Tsunade gave a sigh. Well, before Minato became Hokage, he went on a mission to Uzu, where he met Kushina Uzumaki, a female ninja. As soon as they heard the last name, Naruto and Hinata stiffened. Hiashi, who was holding his wrist in his hands, looked up in shock. Tsunade nodded in response to what they said. They worked together on a mission, and by the time it was over, they were in love. Kushina went back to Konoha and married Minato. A few years later, Uzu was destroyed by Iwa, which is why Minato was especially cruel to Iwa ninjas in battle. After the war, Kushina was pregnant with their first child. Naruto was leaning in toward Tsunade, who had his full attention. Hinata was gripping his arm. The pupils of Hiashi's eyes shrunk. On October 10th, about 16 years ago, Kushina went into labor. That night, Kyuubi attacked Konoha. Minato stayed with his wife as complications arose. She gave birth, but died of blood loss. Minato, racked in grief, went with their newborn child and faced the Kyuubi. He used the Shiki Fujin Jutsu to stop the Kyuubi, and then used the Hake no Fuin Shiki sealing Jutsu to seal the Kyuubi inside his newborn son. That's right. Minato Namikaze used two different jutsus to kill Kyuubi. The first one was the Reaper Death Seal, which Sarutobi used against Orochimaru. The second one was the 8 Divination Seal, which Naruto used on his stomach. When Naruto stood up, his chair fell back. He just looked at Tsunade with wide eyes. Hinata just sat there, frozen with shock. Hiashi took a quick look at Naruto as he tried to figure out what he had just heard. Am my father? The Yondaime. Was he my dad? Tsunade nodded softly. Naruto looked down at the place under his shirt where the seal was. He touched that part of his shirt gently. My dad. What he did to me. Naruto didn't do anything but look at his stomach for a few minutes. Hinata slowly looked up at him because she was afraid he might get angry or do something else. Naruto then looked up. I understand. My dad wouldn't ask me to do something he wasn't willing to do himself. Even if he had used another child, I still would have been left alone, and I could have grown up to be like that Teme, Sasuke Uchiha. He gently sat back down, which was a relief to Hinata and Tsunade. Well, since you are Minato Namikaze's son, you are officially the heir of the Namikaze family and all their capabilities. As such, you are entitled, and should have received equal standing to Sasuke Uchiha after his clan was massacred. Since you are the last of a clan or well-respected family, there will be a council meeting to discuss your fate. Until then, you will be allowed to live in the home your parents lived in, but under supervision. Are we clear? Hiashi just turned his head away in disgust while Naruto nodded. Hinata grabbed Naruto's hand and squeezed it with joy. Tsunade sighed and put her feet up. Now, let's talk about what you said about Hinata. That's Hyuga clan business, and it has nothing to do with the Hokage. Hiashi said, his pride coming back. Tsunade turned to look at him, and her anger made her eyes cold again. Hiashi, it's about one of the ninjas I'm in charge of. I think it's important to me. One of the rules the Shoden put in place when he founded Konoha is that the Hokage won't mess with a clan's traditions and concerns unless they get in the way of how the village works, Hiashi said with a smug smile. Tsunade sighed in defeat, but Naruto's eyes grew big all of a sudden. He got close to Hinata and said something in her ear. Hiashi got mad and turned toward them. Get away from her. Just because you're Minato's son doesn't mean you can be so friendly with my daughter. Turning around, Naruto bowed his head. You're right, Hiashi-san. I'm sorry for being so rude. Good. Come, Hinata. We have some ceremonies to do. Hiashi turned around, but a small voice from behind him stopped him. No. He turned around and saw Hinata standing there with an angry look on her face. He moved slowly toward her with anger on his face. What did you say? Hinata looked up at him. I said no. I'll give up my place as the clan's heiress, but I don't want to be put in the branch family when I haven't done anything to deserve it. So, what will you do then? If you don't want to do this, you have to leave the Hyuga clan. Will you give up your name and live on the street? Will you give up the power, protection, and wealth that the Hyuga clan gives you? Hinata stood up straight and said without stuttering, I would gladly give up all of that. Being part of the Hyuga clan is not worth all it has to offer. She looked at her father, who was shocked. From now on, I will no longer be Hyuga. Naruto opened the door to his home, which Kyuubi had just attacked. He left the Hokage's office with the key, all of his belongings, all the information he knew about his parents as their son, and a guest. Hinata gathered her things from her old home after she gave up the Hyuga name and left her old home for good. Naruto, being the kind of person he was, told her she could stay at his new home for as long as she wanted or until his fate was decided. Hinata looked around the apartment, which seemed nice and homey. It was so friendly and warm. There were paintings and pictures on the walls. There was a small table for eating, and there were cushions around it. The door to the kitchen was close by. On the other side of the room, there was a small hallway with 3 doors. Naruto went over to them, and Hinata put her things on the floor and stood there. She didn't want to make a fuss just yet. The first door Naruto opened was the one on his left. It showed a full bathroom with a tub and a shower. Naruto nodded, then walked over to the door on the other side. Behind it was a bedroom with pale green walls that was a good size. A bed, a dresser, and a closet were there. Naruto looked at the last door but hesitated. He inhaled deeply and then opened the door. His parents' room was inside. On the far wall, in the middle, there was a king-sized bed. Pictures were all over the bedside table of a happy-looking blonde man who stood next to a happy-looking red-haired woman. Some of them showed them holding each other or hugging. Naruto stopped in front of a certain one. It showed his dad, Minato, giving Kushina a hug while she was pregnant. This could be the only photo of the 3 of us together. Sad, Naruto thought. He wiped a tear away and went on. When he opened the closet door, he was surprised to see that the hangers were empty. Then he saw the boxes that had just been packed on the ground. One was written on. Naruto, all of these clothes belong to your parents. We thought you might need the space in your closet, but you'd want to keep these clothes as a reminder of them. Shizune. Naruto gave a nod and shut the closet door. He turned around and opened the door next to the closet to find a smaller bathroom with a shower. As Naruto looked around his parents' room, he sighed. If not for the Kyuubi, this would have been my home. He got up and left the room. When he came back, Hinata was still standing there. Hinata-chan, you didn't have to stand there. You could have sat down. She gave him a nod and sat down on the couch. Naruto joined her and sat down. There's a room there, and the bathrooms are on the other side. Hinata nodded again, blushing. We're all sitting down. I'm sitting on Naruto's sofa right now. Hinata finally got a breath of fresh air. Naruto-kun? I'm in the security room at the Hokage's tower. Did you ask me if I liked you? Naruto nodded. I did, and when you didn't answer, I saw the truth in your eyes. You like me a lot, Hinata-chan, don't you? She nodded, and her face turned more red. Her secret had been told. How would Naruto behave? When she looked up at him, she saw that he was staring at the wall. Hinata-chan, I really like you and think you're a great person, but I'm not sure if I love you. She looked down and sighed. I get it. I know you wouldn't want someone like me because I'm not pretty or sure of myself like Sakura is. No, that's not it at all. Hinata-chan, it's not that I don't love you. I just don't know what love is. As Naruto got closer, Hinata looked up, and he took her hand. Hinata-chan, I like you a lot. Maybe I love you and don't know it. What I want to do is get to know each other better, hang out, and maybe even go on a few dates. Is that okay? Hinata smiled and nodded as tears fell from her eyes. She hugged Naruto and whispered, I understand, and I promise to help you understand what love is and help you with whichever girl you love. I hope it's me. Naruto smiled and hugged her back, which got a eep from her. Thank you, Hinata-chan. You're always there for me when I need you. I really hope that what I feel for you is love, because I want you to be happy. Even as the sun started to go down in the distance, they just stayed like that. A few hundred ninjas were getting together near the border between Earth and Fire. They were shinobi from both the Iwa and the Kumo clans. The Tsuchikage and the Raikage had both put together a secret group to get rid of the troublesome Fox Knight and Konoha. The ninjas sat around and talked and ate together. Their guards kept a sharp eye on what was going on around them. But they didn't notice the person hiding in the trees as it snuck away and headed southeast. So as not to stand out, the figure moved slowly. Once he was far enough away, he sped up and went toward Konoha. The figure spoke to the sky and said, "Naruto, it looks like we're in a lot of trouble. Kushina, your son is quite a handful." It then disappeared into the woods. The next day, Danzo met the Godem Hokage in her office with the elders Kaharu Udatane and Homura Mitokado. Everyone knew that Naruto had been caught, and they were all wondering why he hadn't been killed yet. Danzo wanted to use this as an excuse to pull the Jinchuriki into his secret Anbu route and turn him into his own secret weapon. They all bowed to Tsunade, and she did the same back. "Please sit down. We have a lot to talk about." As they did this, Kaharu asked them what they were thinking. "Hokage-sama, we've heard that the Jinchuriki was caught. What will happen to him?" Tsunade gave a sigh. "That's why we're getting together. There are a few things we need to talk about. First of all, Naruto Uzumaki did give up on his own, which shows he doesn't want to fight us." Tsunade took out her copies of the reports about the Fox Knight, all of Naruto's missions, and Naruto's true lineage. The other facts are that Naruto Uzumaki has been helping the village by catching and or killing spies and traitors in Konoha. He has also been killing enemy shinobi who were on missions against Konoha and our allies. In this way, the only real crime he has committed is running away. Homura put her head down. He was still listed as an S-ranked missing ninja. If he had been caught, he should have been killed right away or when he came back. Naruto only ran away because he was afraid of something happening with Kyuubi. He and Kyuubi's DNA were merging, but he didn't know it at the time. Fearing the worst, he left the village in case he lost control, to protect the village from Kyuubi. Danzo spoke up. Then why didn't he come back afterward? If Kyuubi hadn't taken over, he should have come back afterward, right? Tsunade gave a sigh. He was afraid for his life because his face made him look more evil to the villagers, and he thought they would try to kill him. The man in a wheelchair nodded. "Oh, I see. Well, if that's the case, I don't think Naruto Uzumaki should be killed. Instead, he should be given to me so I can train him as a ninja properly." Tsunade turned her head away. "I don't think so. I won't give that boy to you so you can turn him into another Gaara. Besides, Naruto should not only be let off, he should be promoted. If I could, I would make him Hokage right now." Kaharu was shocked when she saw her. "Are you crazy? Giving the demon power over Konoha?" Tsunade was disgusted and mad at the woman elder, so she turned to her. "You are blind, just like everyone else. Before the merger, Naruto Uzumaki was human. Even now, he acts more human than half the people in this village. He is a hero, many times over." The mission reports were shown by Tsunade. Naruto kept Kyuubi at bay for 16 long years. He also saved the village from Gaara during the Suna invasion. He saved many other lands, giving Konoha many useful allies. To top it all off, he saved the world from being taken over by a madman who wanted an ancient power to make the world into his utopia. Kaharu and Homura both shook their heads, and Danzo, who only had one good shoulder, shrugged. "Well, that might be true, but that doesn't mean he can't run away and leave his village." Tsunade stood up and hit the desk with her fist, making it creak in protest. "Damn it. That boy is a hero, but he's been treated so cruelly and inhumanely. I'm surprised he hasn't killed everyone who called him demon scum." She sat back down and took out her ace in the hole. "If all of that isn't enough, there's one more thing, his family tree." Homura gave a snort. The boy had never known his parents, so how could they be important? Tsunade smirked. "That's easy. His father was Minato Namikaze, who was the Yondaime Hokage of this village and the hero who stopped the Kyuubi." Everyone just sat there, stunned by what had just been said. Danzo was the first to get up. "But how is that possible? The boy's last name is Uzumaki. Named after his mother, Kushina Uzumaki, to protect him from Minato's enemies. But this birth certificate shows that his parents are the Yondaime and his wife." Not only that, but I ran a DNA comparison of his blood to records of Minato's. He is his son. Besides, how many other people in Konoha have had spiky blonde hair and loved ramen so much? The two girls looked at each other. Kaharu said in amazement, then this does change things. If Naruto is of Namikaze blood, he could become the best shinobi in Konoha. Not only that, but he might also be able to use some of his father's jutsu again. He already knows how to use the Rasengan and has even improved it. He might even be able to use the Hiraishin. Danzo gave a nod. Wait, I don't want this boy to die, but we can't let him go without punishing him. Tsunade turned her head away. If anything, Naruto's life so far has been his punishment. Naruto should have been treated with the same care and respect as Sasuke Uchiha. I think the current situation means Naruto Namikaze should be allowed to rejoin the shinobi force and be given a proper rank. The two girls looked at each other. The truth is that they didn't like Naruto or the name Namikaze. All they thought was that Naruto was either dangerous or helpful. Now that he was the son of one of the strongest shinobi Konoha had ever seen, he was a big help. In the end, they both agreed. I agree. Naruto Namikaze has been punished enough in his life. As long as he publicly swears his loyalty to Konoha, we have no problem with him being reinstated and given a proper rank. But be warned, Tsunade-sama, if Naruto turns against the village, he will be destroyed. Tsunade nodded, smirking to herself as she looked at Danzu's angry face. I'll tell him right away. Hinata carried a couple of grocery bags as she walked through the streets of Konoha. Naruto had noticed that while the kitchen had a mix of healthy and his favorite foods, there was nothing there that Hinata liked. He wanted to go out with her to get food, but the Anbu who was watching the house told Naruto not to go out right now. Hinata said it wasn't a problem, but Naruto insisted that this was just as much her job as it was his. So, she went shopping for food and got cinnamon rolls, her favorite tea flavors, and a few other things. She walked down the street with a big smile on her face. After they had hugged, she and Naruto had talked until late at night. She didn't know much about him that she didn't already know, but he had still done a few things that surprised her. She didn't know that he was interested in gardening, but it seems that he was. She laughed at the idea. We might be able to grow a garden together. Hey, Hinata. Rang out from behind her in a loud voice. When she turned around, Kiba, Akamaru, and Shino were coming toward her. Hinata, what's going on? We went to your house to find you, but they said you no longer live there. What happened? Hinata gave a soft smile. I'm sorry, Kiba-kun. I didn't get a chance to tell you too yesterday, but I changed my name. Kiba's mouth opened wide, but Shino just raised an eyebrow, which was how the Aburame showed surprise. Kiba was able to finally shut his mouth. What? So you mean? Hinata nodded. I left the Hyuga home because my father didn't care about me. I stayed because I wanted to earn his respect and maybe one day change our clan, but since that won't happen, I didn't see any reason to stay somewhere I wasn't loved and appreciated. Shino nodded. That makes sense. But where are you staying now? You don't have enough food to last you more than a week or two, so you must be with someone. Hinata smiled again, and her blush came on slowly. I'm staying with Naruto-kun because he helped me with my male parent and then invited me to stay at his new house. Kiba was shocked when he saw her. Hinata, are you sure that's safe? I mean, it's Naruto, and we owe him our lives, but you saw what he did to those guys, and he's not exactly human anymore, is he? Hinata's feelings toward Kiba changed and she became cold. Naruto-kun has been through a lot in his life, but he has always kept a smile on his face, even if it was a fake one. He doesn't care about himself, only about those he loves. If anything, I think being a Hanyu makes Naruto-kun even stronger, and better suited to one day serve Konoha as its Hokage. I gladly trust him with my life, and am very happy that he has offered to. As Hinata turned and walked away, Kiba winced at the honorific. Shino gave a head shake. Kiba, Hinata is right. Naruto has always fought for us without thinking about his own safety. Even after he became a Hanyu, all he cared about was helping Konoha and protecting us. Kiba sighed. Fine, I know when I'm outmatched. I guess I need to apologize to Hinata and Naruto when I get a chance. Shino nodded. Yes, you do, but for now we need to let Kurenai-sensei know where Hinata is living. The two Chunin walked away, and Akamaru was happy to sniff everything new he came across. Naruto sat on his couch, his tail twitching every now and then, his ears turning to hear every new sound. He was looking at a picture of his parents on the day they got married. His mom looked beautiful in her wedding kimono, and his dad had the biggest smile you've ever seen on his face. I can see why you did what you did, Dad. I'm not sure what to think, though. It was for Konoha's benefit, but I was sent to a terrible place to live. Can I really forget what you did? Naruto sighed and put the picture down. Life had dealt him a bad hand, but it had helped him become the man he was. If he hadn't had so much going against him, he never would have become the strong, loyal person he was. But he grew up alone and didn't know very much. If he had grown up with a family, he might have learned what love was and met Hinata sooner. Still, it didn't help to cry about the past. Now he had to face the future and hope that everything worked out. He turned around with a smile on his face when he heard the door open. Hinata smiled back and put the key she had been given back in her pocket. She shut and locked the door before going to the kitchen to put her bags on the counter. Naruto went over to her and gave her a friendly hug. Hey, how are things going? Hinata nodded. Yeah, I saw Kiba-kun and Shino-kun, and we talked for a bit, she said, and then she started to put the things away. So, has the Hokage-sama said anything? Naruto gave a head shake. Nope. Old Ba-chan is just taking her time. Hinata glanced at Naruto. Why do you call her that? It's not a very polite thing to do. Naruto was happy. It's kind of my way of showing respect. I did the same thing with the Sandame. It's my way of showing respect by calling them by what I really see instead of respecting them only for their position. I guess it could be my fault. Hinata put her head down. No, it just means you tell the truth, which I really like about you. He smiled and gave her another hug. Hinata turned red, but she was happy and smiled. Naruto might not have told her he loved her, but he showed her a lot of affection. Hinata was thrilled. Naruto moved away and let her finish putting her things away. He went to the couch and started reading a scroll that he had found in his parents' room. It was a scroll with a very well-known jutsu on it. Hinata looked at it when she came over. Her eyes widened. Are you the Hiraishin, Naruto-kun? Yes, I am. This is what my father taught me, and if I can learn it, I can protect you and everyone I care about better. Hinata took another look at the scroll. It's so hard that it's almost impossible to do. Naruto gave a head shake. Nothing is impossible. Also, I think I've noticed something. Think about the substitution or Shueishin jutsu. Hinata took another look at the scroll. It's similar, but there are still a lot of differences. Naruto nodded. Yes, those jutsu were the very foundation. But it may not be as complicated as it seems. Some of this seems unnecessary, and maybe some of it is false to throw someone off. Hinata cocked her head. Maybe. Some of this does seem unnecessary. Naruto sighed and wrote a few things down. He read the scroll again as Hinata went to her room. She hadn't been in there for long when she heard a aha from behind her. She ran back outside. What is it, Naruto-kun? Naruto looked up and smiled widely. I think I get it. It's not just a substitution jutsu. It's a time-changing jutsu. Hinata looked over his notes. What do you mean? Naruto showed where the notes were. Look, it's like you open a rift where time moves slower around you. The kunai knives with the seals act as anchor points for these rifts in time. Basically, you are moving normally in a rift in time, but to everyone else, you are moving very quickly. Hinata looked at the piece of paper. She didn't pay attention to the extra parts and focused on the main ones. All of a sudden, I got it. You were right, it is crazy. Naruto nodded. Yes, but this is just the beginning. It will still take a crazy amount of chakra and focus to pull this off. It's not easy to open a rift in time and not do anything to mess up time. But it's a start. Hinata smiled and gave Naruto a big hug. I knew you could do it, but I didn't think it would happen so quickly. Were you holding back at the academy? Naruto gave a head shake. No, I'm still that thick, baka. But when you have the knowledge of a 1,000-year-old demon fox, you tend to be smarter about things. But when it comes to emotions and people, I still don't know much. Hinata drew Naruto toward her. I'll explain it to you and help you with anything else you need. Naruto was happy. So, When I get out of house arrest, if I don't go to prison or the executioner's block, do you want to go out to dinner with me? Hinata blushed, but not as much as she usually did. Naruto was slowly getting her to come out of her shell. She nodded. That would be great. Right then, someone knocked on the door. Naruto let out a sigh, got up, and walked to the door. Who's there? Bear. Naruto made a shadow copy of himself, and that copy opened the door. There was the Anbu who had been keeping an eye on them. The Hokage-sama wants you to come. The council has made a decision and needs your help. Naruto nodded, and when Hinata joined him, he turned to her. When she said yes, Naruto smiled and picked up a black cloak and a mask made of cloth. He put them on to hide who he was. Then he put his arm out for Hinata to take. Shall we go? Hinata took his hand and smiled the whole time as they walked away. Tsunade sat back, smiling. The council had not been a problem in the end. Now, Naruto might finally start to get the respect he deserved. Shizune opened the office door at that moment. They are here, Tsunade-sama. As Tsunade nodded, a person in a black cloak and Hinata walked in. Both of them gave her a bow. Naruto, I have good news. The council has decided to forgive you and give you the rank of Chunin of Konoha. All they ask is that you publicly swear your allegiance to Konoha. Hinata smiled, but Naruto's eyes turned cold for a second. As if my actions weren't enough to show my loyalty. Ba-chan, I think there's something more sinister behind this request. If I swear loyalty to Konoha in this way, I'll have to do whatever Konoha asks of me. Couldn't someone in power use that oath against me? The eyes of Tsunade got bigger. You're right. I didn't even think of that. But what can we do about it? Naruto took a moment to think. Maybe there's a way around it. I can still be loyal to the village, but I won't have to do anything but follow your orders. Tsunade nodded. Very well. Tomorrow, I'll call everyone in Konoha together to tell them the truth about your lineage, and that's when you'll take your oath, she said with a smirk, then turned to Naruto. When did you become such a sneaky genius? Naruto put his hand on the back of his head. He said this with a laugh, guess it's the kitsune in me. Tsunade nodded. Okay, you can go around the village after tomorrow, but be careful, Naruto. Many people may not accept you with your new features. Hinata smiled. I think they make Naruto-kun look scary and cute at the same time, she said as she pulled his hood down and started rubbing his left ear with her hand. Naruto closed his eyes as he enjoyed being rubbed. That feels great, Hinata-chan, but we need to move on. Hinata stopped, Naruto pulled his hood up, and they both turned to leave. See you later, Ba-chan. Tsunade smiled. See you later, lil bro. Naruto stopped and turned around with wide eyes. He looked like he was going to cry for a while. Then he blinked his eyes and smiled with a big grin, which made his eyes close. I like the sound of little brother.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.